everyone, we are IIITP's ACM SIGCHI chapter. By now, I hope you all remember what we are and what we do here. We are a student chapter that combines technology and design and helps students excel for the future. So ma'am is here with us as a guest speaker. And this event that we're conducting is part of the Hour of AI weekly event that happens every year for every ACM chapter. So in Hour of AI, what happens every day of the week for 1 hour, we discuss what AI is and how we can combine it with technology and service impacts, how it impacts our daily lives, and what design methodologies include in AI. So we know how to make AI, but how do we actually make sure that AI can properly be incorporated with our systems and how users can interact with them? So ma'am here is very skilled in this aspect. I hope we can proceed with the event. Srikanth sir, if you can please introduce ma'am to the students.
So, good morning, ma'am, and I'm Srikanth, and good afternoon to all the students. So, I'm delighted to introduce Professor Lara Piccolo, a leading voice in human-computer interaction and responsible design, or you can say social responsible design. She pursued her master's and PhD from University of Campinas, Brazil. Professor Lara work focuses on how technology can engage people and communities with global challenges such as climate change, social inequalities, and digital inclusion. She is passionate educator, currently vice chair of IIITP 13.1 working group HCI Education, and professor of interaction design at Code University of Applied Science in Berlin. Her career spans impactful collaboration with NGOs, schools, and public institutes, always centered on accessibility, inclusive design, and participatory approaches. So please join me to welcome us, Professor Lara.
Thank you so much for the kind introduction. Oh, good with the sound. Can you hear me?
Yes, you are audible.
Yes, brilliant. Thank you. So thanks a lot for this invitation. I feel honored to be there, see this room so full of bright minds and this opportunity for sharing what I have learned along the way. And yeah, it was a huge pleasure to be here. I'm a bit like this, as you can see, escaping from the sun, but I'm in Germany, it's winter, so we can't waste any opportunity to get some vitamin D. So I'm here getting the sun, and you're going to see sometimes I'm escaping a little bit to be able to see the screen better, but we need to make the most of it. So I'm going to share my slides.
Yes, ma'am, we can see it.
Okay, perfect. So let's go. So what I prepared to talk to you today is about service design and what is behind that in terms of social awareness and impact. And well, after this kind of introduction, I don't need to tell much more about me, but I just wanted to contextualize a bit where I come from and how I got, the path I got to this topic and how this was built. But I also have a computer science background, actually computer engineering, a bachelor's degree. And then I did my master's and PhD in computer science with focus in human-computer interaction. And now I'm a professor in interaction design here in Germany with this specialization in inclusive and social responsible design. So I'm really navigating in between the worlds from the computing and now hanging out with the design community, let's say. And I think this presentation that I'm going to bring today brings a bit of this blend, which I think is something that I can show to you. It's a bit complementary to what you have in the curriculum. And it's a topic I thought that I wish someone had told me when I was studying computer engineering and computer science. So that's why my choice. I hope you find it valuable. So this is a bit of my trajectory. So I'm originally from Brazil. I started my career there, working with digital inclusion mainly, so low literacy and people with disabilities, introducing energy literacy, smart grids, and so on. And then I moved to the UK after I finished my PhD for 5 months of internship that ended up 10 years. And there I was focusing mostly in social challenges, so tackling with projects to tackle climate change, natural disasters, community resilience, misinformation, and online safety. So then I landed here in Berlin. And again, just to contextualize what I'm doing here now, I teach. I'm a professor at this new university. It's a very young university in Berlin. The university itself, it started as a startup. So we work as it is in a startup. So there is no that hierarchical structures very strongly that we see in the traditional universities. Is a very different way of teaching in learning. So it has this focus on tech innovators, entrepreneurs, and creators, problem solvers. And then we have 3 study programs, which are digital design, software engineering, and business management and entrepreneurship. So we work really together. The 3 study programs are all the time working together at the project-based learning approach. So they are always building their projects together, and I teach students from the 3 study programs because they can actually mix and match the modules from the 3 of them. With that scope, I'm teaching now everything that is connected to UI design and UX, accessibility, information architecture, branding, service design, infographics, and sustainable design. Anyway, everything that is connected with this idea of a socio-technical approach to design, and also inclusion and accessibility and so on. And so, again, I mentioned a little bit before why talking about service design, because that's what I said. I wish someone had told me that before. And now I'm kind of started connecting the dots from things I learned from my PhD, which was really based on, had lots of influence from social science, organizational informatics, and so on. And now with design. And I think talking about service design really help us to have a more holistic and a more socially responsible view of technology we create. Any technology we create, be it an AI or not, anything we create has an impact. We are putting something in the world for people to use and to transform the way they do things. And we need to take that into account. And I know from my own experience that when we started from this technical world that we live in, we started thinking about the features, about what we can do, pushing the boundaries of technology, exploring the most we can to create new things. And sometimes we forget that. And even when we create something that, let's say, is successful, people are using, it is really changing the way things, we kind of get desperate trying to fix the world around us, because we needed to be compliant with things, we needed to connect with other systems, we have legacy systems. I mean, there's like an ecosystem around that we kind of get desperate trying to fix that. And things can be different if we start building the technology with this more holistic and with the service view in mind. So that's the main reason why I want to talk about it. So for today, what I understand are the learning objectives. We have a very short time, so this is really like in a nutshell what we can do in service design. So if you live here with a good idea of what is a service, to define and contextualize it, and understand the basics to analyze the ecosystem of a service and understand the value of this holistic view of a service, I think I'll be glad. I think it was a good contribution. So this is the view I brought from my PhD, Master's and PhD supervisor in Brazil, Professor Cecilia Baranauskas at Unicamp. And I think it's something that really changed the way I see technology and technology design. So what she said that I keep as a quote in my career, along my career, that when we design a technology, in reality, we are designing a social scenario that this technology is embedded and life is lived. So technology is something that is part of that and is not the center of what we're doing. So this idea of an onion that we have here shows it very well that we are really immersed in this technical world where we introduce new tools, but this technical world is surrounded by something that is formal, with regulations, with policies, with ways of doing things, documented or not. And we have like also this informal layer. That are the things we believe, the things we do, the things we want, our values, who we are. And when we are designing, we are actually going through these three layers here. We start the design in the society because we need to understand people and what their problems are. We go to the formal level because we need to create things that are compliant and they connect with procedures and so on. We build it technically, and then therefore we are again influencing things at the formal and at the informal level. So it's really like connected things that we suffer the impact from the society, but we are impacting the three layers back. So with this idea in mind, what is a service? How we define a service? According to the literature, service is something that helps people to do something. So you can imagine the last time you had to get an insurance or book a ticket or what else? Subscribe to sound or entertainment system and so on. All of these are services. So anything that you can be different technical tools, but they, for some reason, they are joined together through data or the user experience, that's a service. For instance, once I had a problem in the window of the car, it broke it. All I had to do, it was going to the insurance company, which is the service I provided there. I clicked a button and they booked an appointment to me at a specific place in town, and I went there for them to replace the window. So it connected these pieces, and all I had to do was to press a button, and it solved my problem. And I'll never forget, because I thought it would be, the hell of a day when I would have to sort this out, and I said, oh, okay, I just had to do that. And this is an experience I keep with me. It's a story I keep with me, like that worked. So services is that thing, that's something you use, but you don't own it. You don't own Spotify. You don't own Duolingo. You use it. And we are doing these things all the time, right? As technical creators and innovators. So, but in practice, what I have learned along the way, building a service is actually solving problems in the complexity. It's not solving a complexity problem, it's a different thing. It's solving problems in complexity. So when you have a process going around, when you have conflicts of interest, when you have management that you have to keep your service alive and profitable, when you have different perspectives, when you have stories, and then when you are causing an impact, this is what a service is. So again, with that idea, the model of the onion that I brought from Professor Cecilia Baranauskas, you can see how contextual a service can be, and the service design can be. Again, we build the tools, but we are influencing regulations, policies. Our tools have processes that connect with this formal layer, and we have cultures and behaviors. So that shows that any design here is contextual. Really where we can build something that for everyone doesn't exist. We are always selecting a group and a social group that we are targeting. And of course, things can be adapted here and there, but we design for a social context. So this is an example of a project I worked a few years ago, and it was funded by the Royal Academy of Engineering in the UK. And our mission was to design a new technology for gender-based violence in an African country. I'm just not mentioning the country just because there may be sensitive things here, because we work it for the government. But okay, the target was building a technology. And the first people we spoke with, they said, well, there are so many different services in place for people to report when they suffer any gender-based violence. So we needed to connect that. We needed to connect the data and make these things more visible. If we were building the thing strictly based on this technical requirement, I think we would build a disaster there, because we learned along the way and talking to people that there is a very strong sense of stigmatization to the victims whenever they report suffering gender-based violence, usually women there. People talk about them as they did something wrong, because it's a very men-dominated society and so on. So imagine if we just make more data available for more people, and we are boosting this process of gossip that is a really strong thing that really undermines how existing services work. So giving more data and make more data available, it would be a huge mistake. So it's the opposite of that. We needed to protect the data and really restrict who needs to see what, and avoid this thing of this gossip that became such an institutional thing there. Among other things, we also discovered that we thought, okay, gender-based violence is not only against women, and so we needed to include, almost homosexual and blah, blah, blah. And there's no, this doesn't exist here. It's not allowed it. Okay, it's not allowed it, so then of course it exists, but then we needed to deal with that in a different way. So it's just an example of how complex things can be, and all we wanted to do is to create like something, AI-based technology to help with that. Okay, again, just an example. So then I want to discuss the...
It's connected.
All good? Yeah, is it all good with the sound?
It's hers.
Are you hearing me well? I'm getting some noise now.
Yes, sorry, ma'am, we had some network disconnectivity, but we can hear you perfectly now.
Okay. So, giving this example that had a huge potential of failure because you don't know the context, you don't know who you were designing for at all levels, we should reflect, like, why do services fail? So they can fail because they are against what people believe, because they are inappropriate culturally, because they're not compliant with policies, because people were not properly trained, because there are poor communication across companies. Are you seeing me? Are you hearing me? Because I lost the video from you now.
Yes, you are visible. We turned off camera to reduce network bandwidth.
Okay,
so,
okay.
Solve the network connectivity.
Okay.
But we can hear you.
Okay. And when you think about design, then why do services fail? And there are so many different reasons that design can prevent a service to fail. There are so many things, and I'm pretty sure that if you think about your life, you can come up with examples of services you tried to use, but the instructions weren't clear. There were broken links, bad forms that didn't get the question it was needed, or something wasn't accessible. It was not clear how it works. Emails that you sent got lost. You didn't get a reply. So, services fail for so many different reasons, and design can also tackle not only the overall, but also these more specific design problems. And then, so in that case, what is a good service then? And then I bring this book that is a reference that I'm using for teaching as well. It's called Good Services from Lou Dawn from the UK, with great examples of services, especially for eGov. But what she defines in the book, like a good service is something that is good for the user in the sense that sorts their problem, solve their problem. It's good for the organization that provides it because it's easy to run, it's profitable. No one is gonna ever agree with a service that is too complex or it doesn't bring any profit. And it's good for the society. It doesn't not destroy the world, it doesn't affect the society in a negative way. And that brings, all the effects for sustainability, for the environment, and even impact of AI. That's something that we are also taking for granted now, that everything we do has to have AI on it. But we don't really think about the impact for the society, for the environment, and how much this is really needed to solve the problem that we are proposing to solve. Okay? So yeah, according to the book, and I think is the main point here, good services are services that are designed because you take all the things into account before you release something, and not, as I mentioned in the beginning, that you create the technology and then you desperately try to make the environment compatible with the technology you created. So good services are designed. So now I'm going to give a bit of a perspective of what is the ecosystem. How can you map what is in this ecosystem of a service in a nutshell? Because this is what I teach in an entire module of service design. So I just got some main points here just to introduce you to the topic if you want to explore it a little bit more. So the first step in this ecosystem is to understand the challenges from the perspective of those going through them. Not from your perspective, not from a company or a founder perspective, no, the perspective of the people suffering from a problem. Then you map all the interested parties and the conflicts between them. Then you create an overview of your service, and then you create mechanisms to evaluate your service. So in a nutshell, this is what a process could be. And when it comes to understand the challenges, I'm skipping here many methods that I'm pretty sure that you see in ACI. I'm going to just mention some possibilities, but the tone, what I think is the most important here, is the role of stories, of storytelling. So we can understand the challenge talking to people, observing people through ethnography or contextual inquiry, like in the sense when you see someone doing something, you ask at the moment why they are doing things the way they are, and then you understand their decisions. So these are all different ways that we can apply to understand and to get from the user, the potential user, what do they need and what their problems actually are. But another component that becomes really strong when you are forming and when you are pitching about the service you're creating is the storytelling. Stories are super important and a super strong component because if you think, that's how people talk about services in general. Think about your own experience. If you were going to tell someone, you were applying for a new passport. Okay, the last time I went there, it happened this way, that way, blah, blah, blah. And then you describe. That's your story. And then you're going to say the moments that you were mad at the attendant, or the document was not ready, or any possible problem that happened along the way. Isn't pretty much the way we discuss and we build knowledge about services. I remember back in Brazil, we had a project with the government to make the pension rules more accessible for the population in the website. So what we learned, because the text is really, law-oriented, really hard to grasp for anyone. So we went to the queue where people go to the counter to ask information about the pension service. And we noticed that in the queue, people started building a knowledge about that because they started talking with each other, and then they say, okay, what's your case? No, my case because I've never paid any pension, and I live in the countryside, and I'm a farmer, and blah, blah, blah. No, my case is different because I lost my husband. Anyway, they have a personal story to tell, and they share that, and then they start creating their knowledge. At the point that when they get to the counter, they have an idea of what they are for. Excuse me. Excuse me, there is a remain of a cold. So it's about this. Yeah, all good?
No, it's you can proceed.
Okay, so about the stories is really like when we tell the stories, how we build empathy, how we create emotional connections, and therefore we create engagement with what we are creating. So it leads to more effective, to more user-centered solution because we are looking at people and we are looking at the real problems. So this is one example of a student project that she was creating a platform for people to share curated hiking trails. Okay, so something that you are keen to go for a hiking today, you're gonna check the options around you and how long it takes and how the trail is and so on. So for example, that were short conversations that she had with people that hike. And from these conversations, she could extract some variables. And what is the budget of the hiking? What is the frequency that they do, the distance, the difficulty of the trails? What do they need to prepare in advance? What are the fitness level required? What is the environment? Or how much are people aware of the environment where they are? So these are all variables that end up being as pieces of an information architecture later on that you manage to extract from these conversations, just telling like, yeah, usually I go for a hiking once a month or I go only in the summer. And when I go, I want to do a low budget thing or I hire or I buy expensive accessories or so on. So, these differences in the way people address their hiking preparations, everything became part of a big information architecture. That's a way to start in transforming conversations, or we can say like a semi-structured interview, into variables of what's become a product in the end, or a service. So with this idea in mind, you can imagine scenarios. Again, scenarios are stories. And it's really like that idea. You imagine that you have your persona, the persona that you define for your service, and the persona has a problem. And as any story, any movie you watch it, any book you read, is the same idea. There is a scene, you understand the context, and then the tension starts building because that persona or the person has a problem. And there are conflicts because if they do one thing, there are always trade-offs that they need to choose, and something is not working, and she needs to, or he needs to sort something in a specific time frame. Anyway, there are conflicts, and the tension keeps building, and then something comes, solves this problem, and then goes to the resolution. This is a service, and it's the same story. And this can be a super powerful way for you to understand what you are building. Like, who is this persona that you are building for? What are the conflicts that they are going through? And what is the problem that you are solving? All of them together. Actually, when I'm teaching that, I ask the students to create videos like social media style, TikTok or Instagram, whatever, of a character or more than one, showing what the problems are and how the product comes to solve the problem, the service actually, how it comes to solve the problem. Because it's a very empathetic way of seeing the problem. And another important thing that it's a way for us to get different perspectives. We can't have one service that one persona use because people are different, and all these nuances is very important to take into account. So we have people that at the last time they used the eGov service for whatever, it worked smoothly, perfectly. And other people that didn't work for whatever reason, because it was not accessible, the language was not understandable, or the link was broken, or these are also perspectives that can be told in the story. So again, I always propose this challenge. Create the sunny, bright pathway where everything happens as predicted, but also think about everything that can go wrong. and create a story about that, or more than one, and build many different perspectives so that you can start addressing things that can potentially undermine and break your service down. So again, in this process of building a service, what would be the second step then? Mapping what the interested parties are. And when I talk about interested parties, you can also read as stakeholders, fine. But it is everyone, individuals, companies, other services, social groups, anyone that for some reason is affected or influence your service, that they have intentions, concerns, resources, anything. So they should also influence the design, as they are also affected by the service. Okay. So again, that model of the onion comes back, the one from Professor Cecilia Baranauskas, which is called here the semiotic onion. It's a way that I use to map the stakeholders in different levels. So you can think about what are those people, those actors that really responsible for making the service to work, those that are operational, those that are the source of data or source of energy or source of features or whatever. Who are the suppliers? Who are the clients? Who are the partners and the competitors that sometimes if you don't address a partner, they can become a competitor directly or indirectly? And who are the community, the parts of the community that are watching what you are doing? What, the legislators, the bystanders, the people in society in general. So with that, you can map what the problems, their concerns are, and ideas and solutions to address that. And that includes AI, that includes natural environment. So whenever you add AI here, you think, okay, who is providing me that? What are the consequences? What I'm doing with the data when I put there? What are the consequences for the environment? So you can question actually how this feature that you are adding is creating the impact and is generating and affecting others. Okay, so again, this is another example of a project I worked on. It was an AI-based platform for disasters. So what we were doing, it was when a natural disaster happens, like an earthquake, flooding, something, many people actually rely on social media to ask for help or to offer help. At the time, it was Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, but not only, but anyway, social media in general. So we were finding a way that AI could help to increase the relevance and visibility for posts that they were much needed, and how to combine that with other platforms going there. So in that case, it's just like it's a huge mapping that I created at the time, but we had to involve from activists that are working in the field, like Red Cross people and so on. We had to talk to community leaders to see the type of devices people were having, if they use voice, if they use text, and so on. And we had to map even the United Nations, because they want a view of what's going on there. So at different levels, you can see there are so many institutions that somehow they want the report of what was happening there, but at different levels, and they should access things in different ways. So these are all, again, is just an example of how many different interested parts can have a different impact and influence on what you are creating. So then we move then to the third part of a service design ecosystem, which is, I think, is a crucial one. Whenever you were talking or you were pitching about a service, is expected that you come up with a blueprint. And for a blueprint, you imagine something exactly like a house, that you have a map of the house and or any building, and you can have different layers of that. You can have the electrical blueprint, you can have the airflow, you can have the hydraulic one. So, again, different perspectives. And this blueprint then is a document that is not one document. You can have as many as blueprints you needed for a service, because again, you should bring different perspectives. And what happens in the blueprint, you picture there the customer journey. So let's say that you are building this app or this platform for sharing hiking trails. So from the moment the person is considered or searching for a place where they can find information, that's where the journey starts. And it goes until, okay, they go to the website, they download the app, they read the information, they had their feelings about that. At the point that they go back there and add their review in the Apple Store, for instance, this completes the full journey. And as you can see, is one persona, one character that is doing this journey. Along the time, there is a timeline. So they prepare the travel, they hike, they plan, and so on. There are emotions involved. So first they are curious, at some point they get exhausted, and at some point they start questioning if they trust that thing or not, and then they get excited. At the point they want to share with other people. So the emotions are moving around this journey. And there are the touch points and channels that are the things of your service. So the app, the website, the email, everything that you create is a touch point. And everything should be considered at the same level. So you see that instead of starting from designing an app or a platform, we see them as a part of this, as a touch point. So again, it's not the center of this ecosystem, but they are there on the surface. And then we can, if you go back to the blueprint, you can have a line that shows whatever the user sees from whatever it is in the backstage. So the other systems that you have to communicate and other departments and so on. So the blueprint, again, as I said, what needs to be there? All the backstage actions, all the systems that are involved, all the people, tools, and so on. So as I said, there is not a unique template for blueprint. It really depends on what you want to picture, and there are many different blueprints for different perspectives you want to picture. So same service, many different blueprints. This is just the structure of what a blueprint is. So you list the actors in the y-axis, things that are visible to these actors, the backend goes down, and the activities goes on top as a timeline. And your customer journey, their emotions, and so on, is in the middle of this blueprint. Okay, so again, I'm just giving an idea. This is something that if you are interested in exploring more, you can find there are lots of templates around. Miro has that, Figma has that, and you can find many other examples on how to build one. It's something that it's really insightful when you start, when you need to map the complexity and the scope of everything you needed to consider. So again, this is an example of a blueprint. I think it's not good enough for you to read. So I'm going to move to the last element then of service design ecosystem. What are the evaluations and metrics? Because I think also is a bit of the way we learn things at the computing side. We learn how to build, but we kind of forget how maintenance is, and we kind of forget how that this is just the beginning of the work, right? Whenever you launch something, that's a completely new cycle that starts there. That is how to keep this alive and how to make sure that this is working. So we needed to come up with parameters that we can measure, and we can see what is working, what needs improvement, and track that over time. So there are many different ways we can do that. I'm just presenting here a few key performance indications, what we call the KPIs, just for you to get an idea of what these metrics could be. So the user engagement, like how much time people spend in that platform, how often they come back, do they leave feedback or not, how, in terms of usability, the percentage of task completion, errors, user satisfaction. So usability testing, for instance, can be an important KPI for a service. The aesthetical appeal of your product, the conversion rate. So people that go there, do they actually complete the task, or do they buy what they want to buy, or do they get a membership and so on? So all the things you can imagine. So you can take an example. I always like to think about that. If you want to measure the success of Duolingo, for instance, what would you consider? Probably it's like, are people actually learning from that? How do you measure that? How often they are coming back? Are they sharing their achievements and so on? So, just examples of things that you could think of. And this, again, you can start thinking in the beginning, and then the design already takes that into account. Okay? And this is another method which I find very valuable. Again, is from the book Good Services. They provided this spreadsheet that you can really measure how your service scores, in generally speaking, from the point that is something that is easy to find if you Google it, or any AI LLM can find it. If how it works is clear enough, if you are good in explain what people need in advance in able to use the service, what documents they have to have, what are the eligibility criteria, and so on. So this is a very comprehensive. If you are interested in the topic, I suggest to visit that, the good.services website. And with that, I complete what I wanted to show here. As I said, is really compacted way of what service design is. And then I separate here like 10 questions that would be like what to take away from this talk. I know it's a lot. It's a pity that we didn't have the chance to interact, to discuss that together, which would help you to absorb that. But I leave here 10 questions that you can come back and discuss and trying to find a good answer for that, so that you can fix what I explained today. First, what distinguishes a service from a technical product? How do technical innovations influence and impact society? The layers that affect the design of a service? Why do services fail? What makes a good service? And examples of artifacts to map the services ecosystem. Why are stories so important? Why is it important to map the interested parties? What is a blueprint? And why do we need to validate a service? So I think if you manage to come up with answers to these questions, I think you got the point. And I would be very happy to discuss that further on. And now, answering to your questions, or if you want to be in touch later on. So yeah, with that, I finished the presentation, and I just want to reinforce that this main idea of everything I presented, that we always need to take into account that there is no neutrality in technology design or design in general. This doesn't exist. We just don't build something that is neutral. No, there is always an instance there, a political instance, of life perspective reflected in everything you do. And we are also impacting the way people do things. That's why we are creating tools. So everything you create, every decision behind the creation has an impact on the user in the society. So simple things like shall I include AI or not, there are lots of consequences. Consequences on the way you are solving the problem. If you are generating questions about questioning the reliability of your service, or if you are generating ideas, if you are involving other players, if you are passing data further that you should protect. Anyway, everything should be taken into account. And I hope you take this message with you for everything you are creating. Thank you so much.
Presentation. I hope all students here got. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So we really appreciate your time that you spent with us, and we really got good speech. Now, I would like to ask the students, do you have any questions? If you have any questions, yes. Can you? Yeah. So we're gonna ask ma'am a few questions. So, ma'am, if you're okay with this.
Yeah, sure, sure. The sound is a little bit strange, but let's try our best.
Ma'am, I hope I'm audible. Yeah. Ma'am, I came to know that you actually did some work on using tech for sustainability and solving social issues. I
Yeah.
want to focus my using AI to solve sustainability issues and social issues. So, if you have any resources or research directions you can suggest for AI enthusiasts like me.
Well, I think the main idea is actually what I said. Like you were starting looking what AI can offer, and just don't forget to look at the new problems you may introduce because you are using AI, right? So I think that's one way to think about, like, how much AI is really necessary to solve one problem, and start from the problem, not start from the fact that you are using AI for that. Start looking around and find problems and say, okay, actually, the capacity of, or the how fast AI can sort things in that context can really bring something new to this dimension, which didn't exist before. You see what I mean? So again,
Yes,
start
ma'am.
from the problem. Yeah, start from a problem that you see out there, and there are so many. When you talk about sustainability and social issues, I think it's hard to find something that is not connected to that. I would suggest you to go to the SDGs, the Social Development Goals of the United Nations. That there is a set of SDGs that basically you can find any problem you have, you can find connected there in terms of food, education, or gender inequality, access to technology. All of these, they have a specific sustainable development goal attached to that. And then you can see how is your country or the region where you are related to all of these goals, and if there are specific targets inside of the goal, that is something that you need to improve. So that could be a good way for you to start looking at problems that are, needed to be tackled there, and then you can see how you can make the most of AI to solve
अब
that
तेरे
problem.
लेट चले गए तो तू रह के क्या ही करेगा रह ही सकता है
अरे वो जरा तूने याद
Okay?
Yeah. We really appreciate your answer. It was very insightful. We have seen that these days AI that affect negative, and you mentioned Duolingo multiple times. We have also observed replaced most of its work with AI, and how it affected the entire user base, and seemingly are not interested in Duolingo anymore because they just replace most of the workers with AI. So, do you have any insights on how we can effectively use AI in a way that doesn't disappoint most of our users? Because in the end of the day, users that we are working for, right?
Yeah.
So,
Well, I hope I got your question completely because the sound was a bit broken. But I mean, generally speaking, I think we all have been through this kind of mixture of excitement and despair when there was this boom of AI. We all were like, oh, we're going to lose our jobs, and what's going to be in the future, and this thing is going to replace everything we do. And I panicked many moments. It's okay, what am I going to teach now? All these things in terms of design, in terms of user experience, everything is there. And then when we start thinking, when we start doing, actually, you see that it's not that great yet. I don't know how it's going to be in the future. But what I'm doing in terms of teaching, I'm using AI, generative AI, the most we can, because I think we are really demystifying and finding things and saying, okay, this is okay, it's a good tool for us, but this is rubbish. This we shouldn't rely at all. And once, the students come across that, and I think it's really good because we kind of feel like, okay, I have a role. It's my critical thinking still super necessary to do what I'm doing. So I think this is a bit of what we needed to take. And I think the societies also, you can see we had here in Germany, I felt that when it was this boom of AI, employability became a problem. I saw many students really struggling to get a job. And I feel that slowly this is coming back to normal. They are recruiting juniors again. I'm not saying that things that will not change. Will. Coding is different, designing is different, but again, it has to be a tool. So whatever we do is we did like not adding AI for the sake of adding AI, because I think even the founders that we have contact in our university, they had the spirit as well. And we had some panels there, and they were all saying like, yeah, forget any funding. If you don't have AI, you are out. So now they are kind of questioning that as well, like not necessarily. So where do we need, and if you are using, justify it well, and do this analysis of, is it okay to use that? Is it okay to give this data somewhere, or do we need it to have an instance of, the LLM local to not pass this data around? So now I think it's more rational, more calm, and it's a more focused decision, and that's what we need to do. Control a little bit the excitement.
Thank you, ma'am, so much. I truly agree with it, and we should be able to use AI in a way that's controlled and also help us levitate our So, us, the students, we really enjoyed your presentation, and in the future, we really hope to be able to with Code University as well. Maybe have some student interaction and exchange programs. So, if any time, be pleased. So, thank you much.
Yeah, thank you so much. And for everyone here, if you come to Berlin, please drop me a message and I'll be happy to show you around. And yeah, hopefully I come to visit you as well. That's something in my bucket list.
We're honored to have you as a guest here.
This would be great.
करना क्या है हो गया
So thank you, ma'am. So now we'll wrap up.
Yeah.
We really thank you for joining us today, and I thank all the students here who participated, and I also thank my IIITP's ACM SIGCHI student chapter conducting this event. So we work a lot to help this event be possible. And I want to thank my faculty mentor, Srikant sir. So thank you a lot for allowing it to happen in the first place. So thank you.
Thank you all. Thanks again for this invitation. It was a great pleasure. And well done. Very well done for organizing it.